Welcome to Transform Now, brought to you by SSNC, where we explore the future of work through the lens of AI. Across industries, leaders are rethinking strategy, culture, and operations to harness AI's full potential. This podcast gives you the insights and ideas to transform your organization, stay competitive, and thrive in a world driven by change. Let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transform Now podcast. I'm your host, Michael Marchuk. And on today's episode, we have a very special guest with us today, Renan Devillieres, who will be speaking to us on some interesting topics regarding AI, but from a manufacturing perspective, because we don't often connect AI and manufacturing. And he's got some very interesting perspectives as we get into how this is evolving within that particular industry. So, Renan, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So can you introduce yourself? Because I'm sure people want to know a lot more about you.
Sure. So I'm Renan. I'm 38 years old. I'm French, but I've been living in the US for like half of my professional life. And I worked for 10 years in operations. So I was a factory director, supply chain director, quality director, and everything in luxury, aerospace, defense. And then I created a tech company in San Francisco, nothing to do with manufacturing. Did every single mistake you can make when you create your first company, I guess. But at the end, it worked. Found product market fit. We scaled the company to Series B, and I exited at Series B. So I made some money, and I told myself, hey, what can I do? And the answer was, all right, now I've been exposed to a lot of tech. And I love the world of operations, manufacturing. And so I'm going to be an investor in tech for manufacturing. And so I run OSS Ventures, and at OSS Ventures, we invest and create software B2B AI companies for the world of manufacturing and operations. We've been live for 5 years. We created 22 companies. Half of them did a Series A. All of our companies are live in 3,800 factories. We have around 200,000 users monthly. And so we have a very interesting perspective on AI and the world of manufacturing, and that is my passion.
And that's why you're here, because I want to hear about your passion, because it often doesn't get out into that. Everyone considers AI to be very high tech and only in high tech. But honestly, manufacturing is getting pretty high tech. So as we look through this, a lot of manufacturers have been experimenting with AI, but mostly as point solutions. When you think about AI agents and embedding them across the supply chain, what needs to fundamentally change within the AI or within the supply chains to allow them to move from sort of decision support to decision execution?
So there is that thing that I love about factories, which is the drive shaft allegory. So 150 years ago, when you wanted to make a factory run, you had a big drive shaft like on the top of your factory. And so all of the machines were powered by the drive shaft. And when like electricity came, a lot of people just replaced the machines with electric machines, but it was the same footprint and the productivity gains were zero. And you had to wait like another 20 years for the drive shaft thinking to really die and to actually do the new thing with the new technology instead of doing the old thing with the new technology. And so what I see in manufacturing is that 90+% of all AI implementations are the old thing with the new tech. And so basically asking, can I write those mails faster? Can I do that thing faster? Can I run the thing faster? But like fundamentally like chocolate covered broccoli. So putting chocolates on top of the broccoli, which is the wrong way of doing it. I'm way more interested in doing the new thing with the new thing. So let me give you 3 concrete examples in supply chain. We went from 155 days to create a new model to 5 days because we created an agentic system and everything. Okay, but that was 3 months. 9 months were speaking to everyone, contacting every supplier, doing the new process and everything to actually capture the game. And so what we are seeing is that the tech is new, the data sources are new, it's very hard, but once you build the thing, you have another job, which is actually changing the company around it. And so those are the 2 very fundamental things that you have to do. And to begin with, the creativity, the boldness, and the courage to actually do the new thing is very rare.
Yeah, this isn't a technology only kind of transformation, is it?
Yep.
So we talked about in the past about industry 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 promising this real-time visibility, but visibility is only one part of it. AI is actually promising real-time action. So in your experience, where are manufacturers most hesitant to let AI act autonomously, and where does autonomy actually create the most supply chain value or the most value within a manufacturing organization?
So any large pool of humans doing things with a high variability is a natural candidate for AI. What we are seeing is that when you start really automating something, you discover that two things are very data poor, even in the most advanced companies. The first is actually getting everyone to agree on how to decide, because the humans are actually deciding with very different algorithms. And two is actually having the right data sources to be able to automate. So let me take two examples. One is a very well-known, very large lifts company. So those people are basically creating the lifts in your building. The variance in the technical specs of the lift for any given building is very different from one rep to another. If you were getting the last quartile rep performance to the first quartile, you would lift off the EBITDA of the company by a third. And so we started the journey of automating that with that particular client. What we discovered is, one, we got them to agree on one algorithm, but there were 3 or 4 different algorithms used by the humans with similar win rates, but very different profiles. So one, we got them to agree on one. And two, 40% of the data needed to take a decision were not in any system. So this includes the history of the company with that particular client. Another includes reading the room on whether the buyer is price sensitive or timing sensitive or whatever, and that was not in any system. Another was what is actually trending those days in the world of the lift and everything. And so we typically find that 40% of the data is not there. And that's one example. Another example is for one Boston-based client, we went from 35 to 5 planners, roughly. In the process of automating them, we discovered that to actually run the planning for a given factory, there are 800 rules that were previously in the heads of humans that they were applying. Those 800 rules were nowhere in no system. And in that particular case, more than 60% of the data needed to make those calls were not in the systems. Very concrete example, you cannot run two what they call high runners, so it's like large production, on 2 lines at the same time, because those 2 lines have the same pipe feeding those 2. And so a large plus a large is more than the pipe. And so that's one of the 800 rules.
So how does an organization, I mean, that's a pretty extreme example where so many folks had the knowledge of the operations in their head and there's little data to work on. So that seems like a really hard place to start. So how does an organization start building up that data and doing this? Is this simply just, hey, listen, we get down to it and we start to manage our people in a different way? Do we do it where we have a solution where we document, start with documentation? Where would you start in that kind of environment?
So typically we see a lot of failing options. Yeah. One option is wanting to go data before getting the value. And another is trying to get to the value with existing data. And so the only way we found successful is to say, hey, okay, there is that thing about, let's say, planning. We think we can get that to be 50% more efficient, and we think we can replace 9 out of 10 humans doing that job. Okay, if we say this is true, then you have to do the hard work. You have to go and listen to the people who do the work. You have to map that. You have to discover another part of those rules and heuristics through data analysis. And then you have to put a first system in production which will be wrong. And then for example, for that particular Boston client, it was 4 months of every day doing the planning and the humans saying, no, that's wrong. Okay, why is that wrong? Because you can do that. Okay, why can't I do that? Because the pipe, oh, right, that wasn't in the data, so let's put the pipe. And so our experience is that you can only run that on very big subjects because it's long and expensive. You can only go with trying to automate and then inferring the data and the rules that you need to discover. Like a losing strategy is going from the data to try to solve the thing because you don't have the data to solve the thing. And in typically your experience, a lot of companies, as you were saying, have been investing massively in getting all the data they can get to create dashboard, to give information to you. But if you want to automate what the humans do, you typically need to have different data and also to discover the inner algorithm that is used by humans. And that's the hard work.
So you mentioned one thing that I want to kind of pull on this thread a little bit, talking about understanding from the humans what they're doing, the why behind they make decisions and whatnot. But you mentioned something about then you can replace the humans. So that sounds like a tough cultural sell with the way that manufacturing is generally having a difficult time attracting talent. Is it really replacing the humans or is it repurposing them?
So we're entering into unknown territory. So if the question is, will there be more humans in manufacturing in 10 years than today? I don't know. But the question, which I think is more interesting, will each human in manufacturing do a job where their leverage will be higher so they can get a better pay? And they are in charge of systems that are more broader, more intelligent, more powerful. And so you can pay that people better because they're managing more things. I think the answer is yes. And so culturally, it's a very different and hard tell. Very few organizations can tell their people, hey, look, probably your job is going to be very different in 5 years. We're going to discover how to do it together. And probably there will be less hours for this particular job. And I try to get them to be paid better. But the organizations that do it is around 6% of all organizations we talk to. So we only work with innovators who have the courage to do that. Those who do that, they actually see employees with a higher satisfaction rate because anyone can see that AI is happening. And so if your executive says, hey, nothing is going to change, don't worry, you're getting augmented, is going to be awesome. Those people are really not dumb. And so they will come to their wife and say,
they can see through that, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. And they say, either the guy is lying or he's dumb. And those are not two good options about the future of this company. And so when they do that and they have the courage to say it out loud, usually we see a way better reaction than you would think.
So how do you said maybe 6% of the organizations you work with are able to make that leap? That leaves quite a few that aren't. So how would you suggest to some of those organizations who are looking at this and perhaps trying to figure out how best to approach it to help them get to be on that 6% side rather than the 94% side?
I think it's very largely correlated to the leadership, but also to the competitive situation of the company. If you have cash, if you are in a good industry, if you're growing, it's way easier than if you don't have the money, if you don't have talent, if you have a tight cash situation. But it's not impossible. I really would say leadership is a big role, and also the hunger to get more, and also the existing relationship with the employees and the level of trust and everything, because trust compounds. But also I'm a geek about economical history. And so when the steam machine was invented, 65% of all manufacturing shops in the UK disappeared in 15 years. The ones that stayed were the ones who got access to capital to buy the new machines, had the organizational agility to be able to implement that very new way at the time of working, and the total economic output doubled. So 65% of companies disappearing, total economic output doubling, very different way of managing a company. I think we're looking at something at least this size. Yeah.
So when we look at this, so the global economy and the way things have been shaking out with things, there's been a desire to reshore manufacturing. And there's certainly a lot of, I would say, intrinsic benefits from that, not only from economy, jobs perspective, but also from the environmental perspective. We're not shipping things thousands of miles away by boat. You're reducing the amount of time it takes between getting those raw materials or other materials to other companies. But you're also bringing that in a much more, encompassed or enclosed thing for your own company or your own organization broadly. So when we see that, the prior history was where can we manufacture it that's cheapest? Well, it's generally labor is the most expensive, so let's go to someplace cheap. And that kind of outflow happened for a number of years. Do you foresee that transition because of the leverage using AI in manufacturing to reshore this and make it more economical, at least equivalently economical, to outsourcing this to another country, another geographical area where labor is cheaper?
Oh, 100%. And also, I will add the number of reasons. If we in the West, meaning like Europe and the US, because we have the same interests, if we in the West don't produce the stuff we are using on a long enough time frame, we are dead. And this has very serious implications. I don't want my daughter to live under Chinese Communist Party rule. I don't know about you, but that's definitely in my case. So let me take a very concrete example. The richest guy in the world, named Elon Musk, he created a car company in California, which is cost labor of everywhere in the world. But let's look concretely on how it did that. So there is that thing in factories called industrialization. Industrialization is when you design the part, so you know the part that needs to be done. Now you need to program the machines and write how your factory is going to operate to actually produce the part, okay? So if you go to any European car factory or if you go to any US legacy automaker, you go to a factory and typically you have 10 guys, usually guys, doing industrialization, and they collectively own maybe 200 machines, all right? Meanwhile, at Tesla, there are 5 guys, paid $500,000 each. And when they do industrialization, the same code is pushed to the gigafactories in Los Gatos, but also in Austin, Texas, in Shanghai, and in Berlin. And believe it or not, but when you have like 50 factories, 50 times 10 people not well paid managing 200 machines is actually a higher cost to produce than 5 guys paid $500,000 managing 6 gigafactories. And so that has profound implication on the quality of the jobs that can be reshored, that has profound implication on how to do things. By the way, everybody says to me, but why do we do gigafactories? This is why we do gigafactories, because then we can pay 3 guys $500,000 and they have the gigafactory to play with and not a little factory to play with. So you can pay them $500,000. I think that's a mega trend that will happen. And there are some things that are still not solved in terms of robotics, but are getting solved. For example, textile prehension. So the true blocker to doing t-shirts in the US, actually producing t-shirts in the US, is actually textile prehension. So as soon as someone solves that in robotics, you can get t-shirts like cheaper than Bangladesh or Vietnam, made in the US. And I think that will happen in the next 3 to 5 years.
So that transition, you put really well, taking from the small mindset of I'm going to have a bunch of people working on a subset of machines to having a few really well-trained, highly paid people because they understand the whole complex inner workings, and pushing that over multiple factories. That sounds like the right way to go. But for a mid-sized manufacturer who maybe only has 2 plants, obviously that's not going to scale. Do you see that this is something that can be scaled down to smaller manufacturers where they can take the gigafactory concepts and scale them down to be able to be used where it's the workflow that's changing and the people doing it can now adapt to the new workflow? Is that how you're seeing it?
So if I take back to what happened with the steam machine, 65% of all companies die also because they were subsidized. And so I think a key question for any leader in a factory setting environment is, what am I subsidized for and what am I right-sized for? So for example, our Boston client, 5 planners, they have 14 factories. So 14 factories, 5 planners, the cost is already negligible. And so you're good. You don't have to be a gear factory to be there. But if you're competing against someone 10 times your size and structurally they can get like an advantage on a big enough part of the P&L, I would be worried. And so the answer is always vertical dependent, job dependent, subject dependent. But in the grand scheme of things, the right size to operate in any vertical in the West is probably going up.
How can AI support that kind of transition? Because it sounds like it's almost like you can't get there from here because you need to have either the capital or the smart people or both to make that transition to start changing the way the leadership sees things. And then leadership then needs to invest in the people to be able to bring that skill set forward. How does an organization start that?
So there are actually 3 parts, 3 possible answers. The first is manufacturing has actually an advantage over any other vertical in the AI age, which is manufacturing had the fastest rate of change of any industry. And so we took globalization, we took offshoring, we took lean, we took supply chain disruptions. Like, executives in manufacturing are heroes, able to deal with anything life throw at them. And so they are we are very well equipped with chaos to face chaos. So that's the first. And so probably leaning and reusing all those muscles of organizational change, courage, and how to do change at scale. That's a good muscle that manufacturing companies have. To be honest, there are 2 other answers. The second is the Jeff Bezos answer. Jeff Bezos raised 100 billion with a B to say, hey, what I just said to you will happen in all verticals. And so I will be the ones creating the at-scale giants for each of the verticals. So CNC machining, process, industries, anything. And I will do AI native companies, and then I will buy every subscale company and integrate my stack. That's the second answer. That's the Jeff Bezos answer, very monopolistic. And there's a third answer also, which is personally what I've been trying to push also, which is there are some subjects, some AI subjects for which any normal manufacturing company is subsidized. And so let's create companies that are specialized in that thing, and they will sell the thing as a service. And so I have an AI company that does plastic formulation. I have an AI company that does new product development and everything. And those are like helping all those companies that are subsidized, that could not bear the 10, 20, $50 million upfront cost to actually create the AI assets. And so I have a more distributed view than our dear friend Jeff Bezos. And I hope that in the future, you have like that ecosystem of companies like giving you the service that you are successful.
Makes sense. And I suppose there's also the cultural aspect to this, and perhaps you've got much more deep expertise than I do in this, but from the manufacturers that I have understood in the past, and some that I have known personally, the smaller manufacturers, these are historically family-owned enterprises where they had one or two very large clients, and they do a lot of work with those clients. They're very reliant on them, but they're still a family-owned business. Do you foresee that those type of family-owned businesses would either A, sell out to Jeff Bezos with his $100 billion funds to create these things, and that's their exit strategy for their family, or B, do you see this as a consortium kind of play where these kind of families can band together? We've seen this sort of like in the dairy industry where there are individual farmers banding together to create a cooperative company to sell their product to the market. Do you foresee something like that happening, or what are your views on that?
So I would think mostly B, because for the families who wanted to sell already sold.
Okay.
And so I'm spending a lot of time speaking to industrial families in the US and in Europe. The ones who are left, meaning the ones who didn't sell already, they have a long-term view. They have the entrepreneurial courage because they made their fortune 1, 2, 3 cycles ago. And so they survived cycles. And so they know what is a market shift. 3, they very often like a lot their employees, and they feel responsible for getting their employees base through the next cycle. And I actually think family-owned business are very well positioned for this moment, because what I'm seeing a lot are very small companies. They don't have any sort of organizational agility or whatever to get that. The very big company, they are very afraid, and they are seeing 1 quarter, maybe 2 quarters in the future. And if you're truly serious about the shift that is happening, it's a 3, 5, 10 years journey. And no public company has that kind of time frame. Apart maybe from the founder created companies like the GAT, the MAGAs, all those big companies. And so I actually think that family-owned business have a very good card to play in the next 3, 5, 10 years because they have all of that. And typically also there is a lot of trust from the employees to that family business. And so the honesty of saying, hey, look, it's a very profound shift. We're going to make it together. Let's go. If it fails the first time, we'll make it the second time. And we know it's happening, and let's go. That is way easier to say to your employees when you have a track record of 50 years of being true to your word.
Interesting you bring that up, because I think that's a cultural phenomenon. So we have good leaders who care about their employees because the employees are the ones who are building the business on top of the leadership, right? So can that translate to, say, larger organizations, larger manufacturers who maybe aren't family owned anymore, but they aren't necessarily large enough to be considered a dominant player?
That will be very hard. And also, 2 weeks ago, I spoke with a newly appointed CEO. And he was telling me, yeah, I'm thinking about reshoring because I see all those things with AI, the actual cost to produce can be down. And he was like, how? Yeah, cultural aspects. I was like, let's hold for a second there. For 20 years, you closed down 2/3 of your factories. You outsourced everything. And now you want to reshore and you think everybody is going to go tap on you. Right. And so, yeah, it was a tough sell.
That's a very good point to bring up too. You mentioned the cycles, and for organizations who have stayed with their program, stayed with their people, and maybe they had to go through some tough times, some lean times where they did have to do layoffs, there's an intrinsic bond that's there that perhaps when you look at it from an MBA perspective. I'm just coming in here as a third party. This is my role now to lean the organization out, to get the numbers up, to make us profitable, to keep us alive. There's a different perspective there. So when you're looking at AI and the culture changes that are taking place, how can these other organizations who aren't family owned, how can they adopt that culture or the leadership required to bring on AI and keep the employees in that cultural fit for the organization?
That is really the most difficult part of it. From what I'm seeing, extreme transparency, speed, and also focus, maybe choosing 3 things to really change with AI and going all in and actually going fast enough and making the changes and everything. And also the quality of the leadership team and the leadership functions and everything has to go up dramatically, because with AI, you're removing a lot of the intermediate layers. You're also removing a lot of friction from decision to action. And so the actual level of leadership is laid bare. And so that's actually, I would say that it is tougher on the leadership teams than the middle management team, because the middle management, they get like way faster approval and everything, but the time from decision to result of the decision is actually dramatically compressed. And so what's funny is that a lot of it is just very old. It's not new. It's just that as it's 10 times faster, the quality of all that old stack of taking the right decision, having leadership, actually being true to your word and everything, as it is way faster and the impact is magnified, then it becomes even more important. So it's not new, it's just 10 times more volatile.
So kind of wrap this up. If you're looking 2, 3, 5 years out in the future, what's going to distinguish these manufacturers, and I guess the leaders in those manufacturers, who have successfully navigated the transition to incorporate AI into their workflows with AI agents and such, versus those who don't? What's that secret sauce that is just necessary?
In my belief, we are still early on that, so I may be wrong, but my belief is in every company, there's not like a zillion areas where AI should be applied immediately. It's maybe 5 to 10 maximum, but those 5 to 10 should move the P&L significantly. Like, it's not about 3% time to production, it's about 30, 50%. And so I would say that those who will make it will be the ones having the correct hunches about where to apply AI. They will be able to go here fast and to change the organization. Actually, when the tech is ready, to really change the organization to reap the gains and the benefits. Because from where I see it, some are not working on the right thing or working on a zillion thing and so working on none. So those are out. Then in those who are working on the right thing, some actually get the AI asset and the tech to work. And that's also it's further down. And of those who have the tech working, there are a few select winners that are changing the organization to reap the benefit. So I would say that's the funnel.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your insights, because things are changing quickly with AI, but it sounds like the culture is something that really is the big leverage point here to allow that technology to come to bear, and understanding what your workflows are doing is the primary start. So, Renan, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. I'm so glad you were able to join us and talk through this. It's amazing how manufacturing is changing, and I really appreciate your insights in this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. I hope it was useful for your listener.
Thanks for listening to Transform Now, the podcast from SS&C. You can find all of our episodes on your favorite podcast channel, as well as YouTube. To stay on top of the hottest topics in the world of agentic automation, subscribe now. The future of work is here.